It's Monday, the 20th of November. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blanco Lirio channel. And the fourth midair collision in Australia in 12 months occurred just last Sunday, the 19th of November, when a pair of Marchetti jets apparently collided while filming for a TV series called Any Fool Can Fly. Here's what we know so far. The jets involved are the Italian Marchetti S.211 single-engine jets with the Pratt & Whitney JT-15D, about 2,500 pounds of thrust. Single-engine aircraft. Two-seat tandem. These aircraft were originally equipped with ejection seats, but most of these Marchettis in civilian hands have their ejection seats disabled as required by the local aviation authorities. Why? Because ejection seats are very complicated and expensive to maintain and require special military maintenance teams and military training on behalf of the pilots to safely own and operate an ejection seat equipped aircraft. And if you're going to operate these aircraft with civilians or put civilians in these aircraft and fly them around, they don't have the training required to be in a ejection seat aircraft. So the ejection seats are disabled. One of the exceptions to this was the MiG-23 owned by Dan Filer, flown in the restricted category. He did not allow civilians to fly in that jet because that jet was such a marginal jet to begin with, and the ejection seat was considered a critical piece of the airframe or aircraft, and so they were allowed to keep the ejection seats operational, and they proved to be very effective in the ejection over the Thunder over Michigan Air Show back in August of 23. The two aircraft involved in yesterday's collision were these two Marchettis here. The blue aircraft was apparently in the lead, Viper 1, and the orange aircraft was number 2, Viper 2. The lead aircraft made it safely back to base following an emergency landing, and they are still looking for Viper 2, the orange Marchetti. There's some confusion with the registration on these aircraft. Victor Hotel Delta Quebec Juliet, this is the blue aircraft, and Victor Hotel Delta Zulu Juliet is the orange Marchetti that was lost. These two aircraft are owned and operated by Jetworks Aviation out of Melbourne, Australia. Here's Delta Zulu Juliet shown in this picture. This is a organization where you can buy rides in these aircraft and or get formation training in these aircraft. And here's some of their different rides that you can take and the prices that you pay. And here's some of the instructors. And unfortunately, in this accident on Sunday, it's being reported that Stephen Gale was the pilot of Viper 2 that did not make it back to the airport. It's believed that in the lead aircraft, Viper 1, who made the Mayday call was Peter B.D. Clements. Also in the number 2 aircraft that was lost at sea was photographer James Rose, a famous Australian photographer and drone operator, who was apparently filming at the time of the accident. In the other seat of the Marchetti Viper 1 that made it back to the airport is Joanne Main, a Qantas pilot, airline pilot, and former Roulette's aerobatic demonstration team pilot. The poorly worded TV title for the show they were filming at the time of the collision, Any Fool Can Fly, has apparently since been renamed Jet School. And this appears to be the brainchild of Stephen Gale, one of the owners there of Jetworks. Check it out.
What would happen if you took a group of highly skilled individuals who'd barely even thought of flying before, taught them to fly, but didn't stop there? Could they master aerobatics or formation, or even fly a military jet? Peter and Tori are absolutely pivotal to this.
As an ex-Air Force instructor, I expect a lot.
You want them to get out of this pilot's course and be the very best they can, because you're training for mastery as a pilot. Just good enough isn't good enough.
So based on who we know was in the airplane at the time of the accident, it appears to me that they were not filming one of the student roles in the aircraft for the TV series. It appears that they were just filming some B-roll or some filming of the aircraft in close formation for the TV series, not with one of the so-called student pilots on board the aircraft. But here's the ADS-B data from FlightAware departing from Essendon Airport near Melbourne, Australia at about 1:24 local time, and I suspect that this accident occurred somewhere right along about here in their flight profile. As when you're flying in formation, typically the lead aircraft has the squawk and the ADS-B going, and the number 2 aircraft has the transponder in the standby mode and the ADS-B off, so as to not confuse air traffic controllers. So this is a Delta Quebec Juliet, the lead aircraft. So they climb up to about 2,500 feet. They're getting up to 250 miles an hour, and then the lead aircraft does a descent down to 1,500 feet, picks up almost 300 miles per hour. Bit of a turn, and then pretty quick at about 1,800 feet, the lead aircraft is turning around looking for the number 2 aircraft. So I suspect the accident probably occurred somewhere in this maneuver right in here. Here's a recording of the Mayday call from Viper 1, which sounds like the voice of Peter Clements.
I think that Viper 2 has entered the water. Viper 1, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday.
Viper 1, roger the Mayday, and you anticipate Viper 2 into the water?
I'm anticipating Viper 2 in the water. We can see a splash mark. I'm not sure what's going on down there. We have a little bit of leading edge damage, but we're flying okay.
Viper 1, okay. Squawk ident if you're able.
So Viper lead calling the Mayday, 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 apparently saw Viper 2 going into the water and did report some minor leading edge damage to his aircraft, Viper 1. Local media did show some pictures of Viper 1 back in the hangar following the crash, surrounded by the police tape, but it's hard to see the damage reported on the leading edge of the wing. I'm not sure if there's any damage there, or if this is damage over here on the right wing, or is that the Cessna aircraft behind it? Not sure, but it doesn't look like a whole lot of damage to Viper 1, the blue Marchetti, from this picture anyways. Here's another picture the local media got of Viper 1. That may be some damage here, not sure about over there, and that may very well be Joanne Main standing in the hangar following the accident. Here in Northern California, as we learned from Corey Lovell here of the Patriots jet team based in Byron, Northern California, filming for TV and movies from these jets is an extremely demanding endeavor. These guys did the majority of the filming for the movie Top Gun Maverick right here in Northern California and in the Oroville River Canyon for those dynamic canyon scenes. But it's extremely dangerous work and requires a high degree of precision and formation flying skills. Everything has to be carefully choreographed and briefed in advance. The ATSB, or Australian Transportation Safety Board, will have a preliminary accident report out in about a month or so, just showing, just like we do here in the States, just having the facts, the data as they know it. But because Viper 1 and the 2 pilots did make it back safely, investigators already have a pretty good idea of what happened according to these 2 pilots' interviews. There's probably good camera evidence from the lead aircraft that made it back home, but they still have to recover the number 2 aircraft and all of the evidence that they possibly can, which is going to result in a 2-year-long investigation process in an effort to get to the bottom of exactly what happened here. But because the 2 survivors in Viper 1, investigators already have a pretty good idea of exactly what happened. But it'll be quite some time before the rest of us know. In the meantime, for those of the rest of us that dabble in formation flying, first off, you got to get proper training for formation flying. Personally, I won't let anybody fly on my wing that's not a former military trained formation trained pilot. Second, a couple of basic rules here, and some of the questions investigators will be asking is anytime first off, you can never lose sight of each other. If the number 2 aircraft ever loses sight of lead, he has to break out of the formation using the pre-briefed formation breakout procedures. Number 2, the transition of the lead from one aircraft to the other has to be a positive transfer of control, just like positive transfer control of a tandem seat aircraft, or any aircraft for that matter, when you're learning to fly. Anytime you are doing a switching of the lead, that has to be a very carefully choreographed and positively identified transition. 2, you have the lead on the right. 2 has the lead on the right. 3, if you're coming in towards each other, if the number 2 aircraft ever exposes his belly to the lead aircraft, you will hit that aircraft. If you are coming in too fast, too quickly, you cannot belly up to the other aircraft like this. You have to overshoot the formation by flying underneath the other aircraft. Never can a formation go belly up to each other, because as soon as you go belly up to each other, one way or the other, you will crash into that aircraft. Why? Because once an aircraft exposes its belly to another aircraft, you can no longer see the other aircraft, and your inertia vector is taking him right in to the other aircraft. So these are some of the things investigators will be looking at as they look into this tragic 4th mid-air collision in Australia in the last 12 months. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.